laugh with myself this afternoon. I realized that after the first night, when I introduced myself, I have not introduced myself every night thereafter. I've never said my name or anything else, so. I think I know all of you. At least I try to get to know names. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Charlie, and I'm your official welcomer. So it's always been fun to do that every night. We really do owe you an apology, and I'm very, very sorry. It seems like Murphy's Law is alive and well because yesterday our restrooms just kind of stopped working. A major disruption, no question about it. And so we just want to remind you that there is a bathroom behind. If you can't go downstairs, there is a bathroom right behind you and behind those glass windows. It's our mother's room, and there's a bathroom in there. If you can go downstairs, there's just down the stairs and through the door to the left are two bathrooms, male and female. And so we welcome you to do that. But unfortunately, the bathrooms on this level out the lobby are not working, so we apologize. With that, there's nothing else that I have. Invite you up, Chuck. And for those of you who were here last night, we talked about Daniel chapter 5. And we talked about Belshazzar and the handwriting on the wall. And there was a question that came up out of that. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to hand you the question, and then I'll let you carry on.
All right.
So it says in chapter 5 of Daniel, how is it that Belshazzar was the son of Nabonidus, but the queen referred to Nebuchadnezzar as his father?
Thanks, Charlie. Great question. And, you know, I felt like this in my pocket, and I said, I forgot my glasses. So you'll have mercy on me. I do a little bit of squinting up here. But when we are looking in Daniel chapter 5, remember the queen mentions to her son. And I'm looking in Daniel chapter 5. In verse, we can read verse 11. There is a man in your kingdom in whom the Spirit of the Holy God, and in the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, at the wisdom of the gods were found in him. Fancy. Oh my, another world. Thank you. And Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, Chaldeans. So interesting, several times he's referred to as your father, but we learned last night that who was the father of Belshazzar? Oh boy, isn't that nice to be challenged to remember Chaldean names? Nabonidus. So Nabonidus was his father, but in this culture, and you're going to find this throughout the Bible, they referred to someone who preceded you as the father. Sometimes he's your father, sometimes he's your grandfather, sometimes he's your great-great-great-grandfather, and sometimes he's the guy before you on the throne. So think about it this way. Another name for Jesus was Son of David. And we know that Jesus wasn't the son of David. He was the great-great-great-great-great-great something grandson of David. But that phrasing is used often in this society. So just great question. I hope that answered it. That is something that is very common in the Bible, and you'll read it as you go through, and also in ancient Near Eastern culture. All right, thank you. I think it's time, isn't it, for our drawing tonight? And I am looking for our... Thank you, Sarah. It will be handy. I'm sorry for you, but I'm very thankful. All right. Miss Caitlin, if I can get a mic for you. And our drawing tonight, first, before we have a drawing, I'd like to just share with you tonight as you leave, we have 2 handouts for everyone. One is the Bible studies we've been handing out, right? The one tonight is called, Did God Create the Devil? That's a good question, right? So find that interesting. It's kind of connected with tonight's message, but not completely. But I think it's a great foundational principle. And a message, a magazine for each one of you. It's called Signs of the Times. The article is on the great controversy. So it's a great one. Wanted to make sure each one of you had a copy of this. And that'll be tonight. But for now, we're doing a couple drawings for what's this?
A Bible.
You know I'm enjoying getting out a Bible every night. And a little book entitled The Drummer Boy's Prayer. It is a great little story of a surgeon who goes to operate in the Civil War on a drummer boy, and what that drummer boy does for the surgeon. Fascinating story. It's a great story and shows the hope that you and I can have. All right. Miss Caitlin, time is yours.
11023.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Sam. Happy reading, ma'am. Yes. And we've got a few more. I got excited when I was ordering supplies for this meeting. I just bought a whole bunch of stuff. So if you get your name called every night, that's okay. I'm not looking at you, ma'am. Okay, sorry. All right. Yeah, I know. We're waiting for it.
11112.
All right, all right. Here we go. Happy reading, sir. All right. And let's just go and we'll get our next one.
11087.
I think I know that lady there. Happy reading.
11022.
Excellent. And I definitely know that gentleman over there. And we have one last one. See who's it going to be tonight. Caitlin, I'm just glad you're here helping me. You know that?
11078.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, ma'am. As always, I'll take that for you. Appreciate it. Not only is Caitlin assisting here, she's also assisting in the children's meeting. So yes, it's nice to have these multifaceted young people, isn't it? All right. Just a few, I was ahead of myself, wasn't I, tonight with a drawing? That's okay. Reminder, there's no meeting tomorrow night, but on Tuesday night, welcome to come early for soup. And then we have our subject, rule by law or by grace. And this ties very closely to what we're going to be looking at tonight and on Wednesday. So just letting you know, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a neat doubleheader. And then on Wednesday, and every now and then I do a double click on this. Wednesday, it's real or counterfeit, the Antichrist revealed. That is a follow-up from tonight. And so we're going to look at part 1 tonight. Wednesday would be part 2. On Thursday night, we have no topic, but on Friday evening. Now, I know some of you may have some activities planned on Friday evening, but this is going to be the greatest prophecy. Obviously, you know that's my opinion, right? I don't think there's anything in the Bible that says it's the greatest prophecy, but it's fantastic. When we look at what we look at on Friday evening, there's going to be, for me, one proofs of the accuracy of Scripture and its relevance for us today comes from what I will be sharing next Friday night. So there it is. It is fantastic, and it clearly lays out without question who the Messiah is. You already know, but you have a chance to actually tie the dots together through this prophecy. It's fantastic. Again, our subject tonight is going to be who are the end-time superpowers. Before we start, I always like to pray. Father, tonight I am recognizing my need of you, and I'm asking that you would teach us through the word. We ask in Jesus' name, amen. Probably one of the biggest questions that we find today is, who is the Antichrist? And there's been all kinds of ideas, anything from Prince Charles to the current president, all kinds of ideas of who is the Antichrist. But you realize the word Antichrist is actually, even though it's talked about in apocalyptic prophecy, remember apocalyptic prophecy is end time prophecy, the books of Daniel and Revelation, the word Antichrist is not found there. In fact, the only places you find the word Antichrist used is in the writings of John, 1 John and 2 John. Let's just look at it, shall we? That way we can look at 1 John and 2 John. 1 John chapter 2, verses 18 and 19. And if any of you have ever studied the book of 1 John, I'm a little biased, but it is one of the most incredible books in the Bible. 1 John gives a picture of God and also what he is to us. 1 John chapter 2 and verse 18 and 19 says, "Little children, it is the last hour. And as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they'd been of us, they would no doubt have continued with us. But they went out, that they might be made manifest that there were none of us." He's doing a little wordplay, a lot of talking there, but what he is saying is this. Even in John's day, there were Antichrists. So I think it's important. Sometimes we get the idea of Antichrist, we think, oh, it's going to be some evil man of Eastern European, but I'm just looking at popular movies, right? Origin, who is coming out and at the end of time. We find out that there are Antichrists even in John's day. He said they were part of us, but then they left us. So that's interesting, right? 1 John chapter 2, verse 22. "Who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist that denies the Father and Son." So Antichrist is someone who's denying the Father and the Son. And then chapter 4 and verse 3. "And every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world." So clearly, you get this picture that Antichrist was already operating in John's day. Now, what does it say in verse 4? "Ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you is greater than he is in the world." You're welcome to say, that's great. You can say however you want to say it, but that's good news, isn't it? Because sometimes we get the idea, oh, the Antichrist, that is powerful. We need to be careful and worried. And no, friends. No need for worry. He that is in you is greater than he that is in the world. And that is the picture that we have here. And then the last one, 2 John chapter 1 and verse 7. 2 John 1, there's only one chapter in 2 John. Verse 7 says, "Many deceivers have gone out into the world who do not confess Jesus Christ is coming in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an Antichrist." So these are the only times you see it. We have a pretty clear layout of what denying the Father and the Son, denying that Jesus has come in the flesh, denying that Jesus is the Christ. These are things that are descriptors, and we also see that they already were in John's day. However, that being said, in prophecy, we do see I'm using a indefinite article, right? We do see an Antichrist. It's described in both Daniel and Revelation. So with that in mind, we're going to jump into our study. We're looking at Daniel 7. I'm using Revelation 13 as a springboard, okay? Let's Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." There are some just interesting creatures in Revelation. Maybe this is why some people just run away from Revelation. It's like, what is this? What's it talking about? Well, we'll continue, and we're going to hopefully bring some sense to some of that this evening. Continues on, John does. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. So we have this beast coming out. It's like a leopard beast with feet like a bear and mouth like a lion, and the dragon gives it its power, and it comes up out of the ocean, and all the world wonders after it. It had a wound that was healed, and you're like, woo, this is kind of, I hope you're not trying to take notes on that fast. Amazing. Please remember, the book of Revelation is written predominantly in symbols. It's given symbolically to teach about something that is to come. And we're going to look at that. We are in that time frame. Verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. So there's the picture that we see in Revelation chapter 13. Now with that, I want to just do a quick question. I think that we're not in verse 4 anymore. I think this slide has switched now. We're in verse 5 or verse 6, even though it does say verse 4 on the screen. And he opened his mouth to blasphemy against God, and to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of the life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. I'm going to go back to that one. So this is the description we have in the first verses of Revelation chapter 13. Now, just a quick review. What were the beasts that were mentioned? That this unique hybrid is probably not the right word, but this unique conglomerate beast, what were some of the beasts that were in it? A leopard, a bear, I heard lion, that's right. And what was the other thing that was mentioned? A dragon. So you have these beasts mentioned, and when I see them, and I think this is when John's writing, remember John, more than half of the book of Revelation is taken in whole or part from the Old Testament. So when he's writing with the Old Testament's mind. He's using Daniel, he's using Ezekiel, he's using other parts of the Bible. And when his readers are reading this, they're like, where have we seen this before? And there is a place very clear to see, and that's Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7. So we're going to go and turn to Daniel chapter 7, and we're going to spend some time there this evening going through this. Now, this is a little bit of deep Bible study in a sense that you get to ask yourself questions. We're going to go through it, but there is also a message of hope as we're walking through this. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. And when we saw this in Revelation 13, it was nothing new. It had already been talked about in Daniel chapter 7. Now, this is a little different, but you have beasts coming up out of the sea. What does the sea or waters represent in Bible prophecy? Yeah, we just looked at this last night, right? So we've already got a foundation, or was this 2 nights ago? Anyhow, we've just recently seen it. The sea or waters represent peoples, multitudes, nations, tongues. We see that there in Revelation 17, verse 15. Next question. What does a beast represent in Bible prophecy? We just saw this too a few days ago, didn't we? See, everything builds together. It's a representative of a kingdom or a king, right? Remember those 7:17 of Daniel says, these great beasts which are four kings which shall rise out of the earth. And then speaking of the fourth king, it describes him this way. The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth. So king, kingdom, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms. So this is, I've got kingdoms coming out of a place where there's lots of multitudes of people. So I could say a nation rising up in a highly populated area. That's the kind of a picture that I'm getting if I tie these passages together in the Bible. So here's Daniel's vision. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings, and I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given it. So I see a kingdom that's rising up out of a highly populated area. You saw the next slide. Who are we connecting it with? Babylon. Now, just a little thought. Babylon is represented as a lion in Jeremiah chapter 50. Remember, Jeremiah, who talks about Babylon more than any other book in the Bible? Jeremiah. Over 150 references. 150 references out of the 260 in the Bible are all from Jeremiah when it comes to Babylon. So here we have a statement referring to Babylon, Jeremiah chapter 50, talks about Babylon as a lion rising up out of the thickets along the Jordan. Gold, lion, eagle, all of these are superlative things, aren't they? King of the beast, king of the air, you get this super wealthy metal, all referring to the nation of Babylon. Fascinating. Babylon, we know, if we looked at this actually last night as well, you had the striding lion there along the processional way, right? You also have lions throughout, even though, of course, the Ishtar Gate has bulls and the dragon, the Mushushu, right? So you have all these interesting things taking place in Babylon. Babylon continues from 605 to 539 BC. It's not a long reign. Now, of course, I'm not speaking about ancient Babylon. I'm speaking of Chaldean Babylon, what they call the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It is reigning for, how long a time is that? Not that long. 66 years. I'm glad someone's got good math in here and it's fast. Thanks, Rad. So this is not a long reign per se, but they were a tremendous golden kingdom. And it says, and behold, another beast, the second, like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. So there's another kingdom that follows up after Babylon. This one is compared to a bear. It's raised up on one side. It has 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. So this is a powerful, even maybe sometimes, maybe get the idea even more powerful than the lion. It's devouring much flesh. What nation rises up after Babylon in this system of world empires? Medo-Persia is the next one. And it's interesting enough, when you see that you have it raised up on one side, a lot of Bible students look at this and say, wait a minute, you had 2 empires, Medo-Persia, and one of them was more powerful than the other. Maybe that's what it's talking about. Medo-Persia was from 539 to 331 BC. Again, we're looking at kingdoms rising up in a highly populated place, one after another. First, Babylon, then Medo-Persia, and then, what's the next one going to be? You almost can see it, can't you? After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. And the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So this is very interesting. 4-headed leopard with 4 wings of a bird. And it's coming up afterwards. Why 4 heads? Well, you're going to come to that, but it has 4 kings that take over after Alexander the Great. Now, actually, there was 5, but then it narrowed down to 4, and then a little bit later, it narrowed down to 3. It's interesting if you look in the history. Cassander, Ptolemy, Lysimachus, and Seleucus, each taking different parts of the Greek Empire. No one could rule what Alexander the Great did. And so now they're kind of splitting it up. Some had Thrace and Asia Minor. Others had Greece. Others had Syria and East. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out which direction you're looking at. I've got my map going this way. And then some had Egypt, right? Ptolemy had Egypt in North Africa. So this is some of the breakdown of the Greek Empire. Actually, there is some of a picture. And that one starts out with the 5, later became 4. And then by the time you get to Jesus, there's 3 main sections. Not Jesus, but right before him, before the Romans take over. All right, Greece is from 331 to 168 BC. And then after them, it says this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. So as I've been going through my descriptions, it seems like this one is described as even more powerful than any of the ones before it. Do you see that? And it goes on and it says this, and it had great, what kind of teeth? Iron teeth. You almost see a little connection, but we'll continue. And it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. Not only does it eat, not only does it break them, it stamps on them. And it says this, it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Picture, layout of this 4th beast. And he doesn't describe what the beast is. It just says it's a dreadful, terrible beast. I've got a humorous slide coming up you'll see shortly of what someone thought it looked like, but we'll get to that shortly. That is not the humorous slide. So they don't know how to describe it. Daniel doesn't know what to call it. He just says a great and dreadful beast. It's got iron teeth. It stamps on things. It's got 10 horns. There it is. Kind of a ugly looking creature. What nation more powerful than Greece comes after Greece as a world empire? My friends, it's Rome. Fascinating. 168 BC to AD 476. Now, here's the picture. This is a courthouse in Germany. Built in the 1300s, but in 1524, statues were added over some of the doors. I have friends who took these pictures and brought them back to me. I always love it when that happens, right? Traveling friends who take pictures and bring them back to you. Notice it. I'm going to zoom in. Over this door, again, 1524 is when these sculptures were added. Here's a sculpture. This is a Chaldean emperor sitting next to a lion with 2 wings. Then on the other side of the door, here is a Persian emperor sitting next to a bear with, if you could zoom in on it, you could see it maybe a little bit, 3 things coming out of his mouth. These are biblical symbols, and whoever designed these, I could say it now, 500 years ago, right? 501 years ago, they were connecting the kingdom with the animal just like you and I just did. This is not new information, friends. This has actually been around and understood for quite some time. And then we have a Greek emperor sitting next to a 4-headed leopard. And then you ready for the next one? This is a little bit interesting. It looks like a dog. Sorry for those dog lovers out there. I'm a dog lover, but they've described the 4th beast next to a Roman soldier as a dog. And how many horns does it have? A good guess. There's 11. We're about to find out why. There sees something in prophecy that's fascinating. But yes, so if any of you would like these pictures, I'll see if I can find them I've got them somewhere. But fascinating what we can see as we're traveling. What are those 10 horns? Those are, here it is, Daniel 7:24. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And remember, they're being used interchangeably sometimes, kings and kingdom, right? 10 kings that shall arise, 10 kingdoms from AD 476 to the second coming. This sounds a little similar to what we saw in Daniel chapter 2. Let me look at the tribes, the Germanic tribes that were kind of broke down the Roman Empire. The Romans were, these barbarous tribes came down from the north and took over Rome. Eastern Rome, no, Western Rome, sorry, I was going to my map, getting my map in my line. And they took it out, 476 AD. And here are they, the Alemanni, the Franks, the Burgundies, the Suevi, the Lombards, the Visigoths, the Saxons. And 3 of them don't exist anymore. And we will find out why on Wednesday. All right? That's the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. They are now extinct. All right, here's a kind of an idea, picture of what it looked like and the breakdown of that. All right, teachers. I have a couple teachers out here. When you teach, there's something that we do called repeat and enlarge. And we don't use that phrase in teaching, but it's just kind of what happens. First year in English, I'm going to teach you some basics, a noun and a verb. The next year, I might add a little bit more because we might have a predicate noun and we might have the main noun in the sense that we also have a predicate noun, right? And I might add more details, not just verbs, we have linking verbs and being verbs. And the further along we get, we start having prepositional phrases, things that stress me out terribly. I'm amazed I've remembered this much as I'm talking to you. I just wasn't too good in English. I was telling a friend of mine, it wasn't until I started studying Greek that I started understanding English better. I think you have to study a foreign language sometimes to understand English. But there is this building, every year you build up a little bit more. In the book of Daniel, that's what's happening. In Daniel 2, we're getting taught some very specific information. And it spells it out for us. You, O Nebuchadnezzar, are the head of gold. I don't have any questions. And then I build on everything from there. Then the next set, the next major vision that goes through kingdoms is found in Daniel chapter 7. And it's following the same exact format, but it adds a little bit more information. So here, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, divided kingdom, God sets up his kingdom. Now, in Daniel 7, there's one more piece that I haven't shared yet, so we're going to get to that. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. And then in Daniel chapter 8, it changes things a little bit. We looked at this in Daniel on the first night. It does have similar kingdoms, but it also adds more information. I'm going to come from a different angle. I'm going to share you the same framework, change it a little bit. Same framework, adjust it, come from a different angle. Great teaching. And that's what we see taking place in the book of Daniel. Daniel's a teacher, and he's making it very clear for us. All right. In our picture, lion with eagle's wings, bear with 3 ribs out of its mouth, 4-headed leopard with 4 wings, nondescript, terrible beast with 7 horns on its head, something else happens. Right after it, it describes another horn coming up among them. Here's how it says it. I considered the horns. He's looking at the 10 horns. And behold, there came up among them another little horn. A horn is a symbol of what? We saw it was a symbol of kings, right? The 10 horns are 10 kings, right? So this is a little horn, a little kingdom. It rises up among the other horns. Oh, okay. I guess I'm going straight into it. So let's identify what is this little horn? First, it arrives where? Among the other horns. Those other horns are what you and I would call modern-day Europe today. Not the same exact names we use today, but the land area is modern-day Europe. The second thing, and notice this, at verse 24 of Daniel 7, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them. Another shall rise after. When Rome fell down, Western Rome, it was AD 476. It divided into those 10 divisions of the Roman Empire. And it says, after them came up another one. So they took over roughly 476 AD, some that time. some a little bit after, and now after them comes another one. Another power rises to power after them. Daniel 7:8. I consider the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. And now I'm going to take a break after this one just to take some time to teach, if that's okay. So it's a little horn that becomes great. If we took the time, and I have such a massive amount of material I'm trying to cover tonight, but I encourage you to go home and look at Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 is discussing these superpowers, if you will, at the end and throughout history. It focuses more on one than any other. It talks a few verses on the lion, a verse or on the bear, a verse or two on the leopard, a couple of verses on the fourth beast. But when it gets to the little horn, it talks and it gives more information, more information. Here's the verses. Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. And Daniel chapter 7, verses 20 through 26. Or 20 through 25. I'm trying to do my memory from. They're all looking at this little horn power. It's a big issue in the mind of Daniel and God who's giving him the vision. When there's a lot of emphasis placed on something in the Bible, it's good for us as Bible students to say, if there's a lot of emphasis, I'm going to spend more time focusing it. Does it make sense? What theme we looked at a few nights ago? I think it was on Tuesday night. We looked at the second coming of Jesus. 1,500 verses in the Bible are focused on the second coming. One in 25 verses in the New Testament are talking about the second coming. So should I be looking at it? Absolutely. Every now and then I get sidetracked as a Bible teacher. Something comes across my desk and, hey, check this out. And I can go down a rabbit hole. Did any of you go down rabbit holes? You get something, just start, you open up your YouTube and you get down a rabbit hole, right? I'm sorry, no one probably does that. Or get in Facebook and you start checking on things and you go someplace where it's just really not that relevant to your life. Well, sometimes someone can take one verse in the Bible, it's an odd verse, and focus on it and focus on it and focus on it. I think what we need to do as Bible students is find out what the Bible talks the most about and focus on it. It makes sense? Whatever is the focus for God, I think it should be the focus for us. That's just my opinion. But one way I like to study. Another thing, when prophecy focuses on certain nations, it does so for this reason. Those nations affect his people or his word. When the Bible focuses on certain nations in prophecy, I'm just repeating this, it does so because it's nations that affect his people or his word. And you're going to find that China's been around longer than these nations. But China's not directly affecting God's people at this time in Earth's history, so they don't come up. Why is Babylon mentioned? Well, that's kind of obvious, right? They took their Jewish people captive. Why is Medo-Persia mentioned? Well, that's kind of obvious. Medo-Persia is the one that set them free to go back to the homeland. Why were the Greeks mentioned? Well, that's pretty obvious. Hellenism completely changed the way the Jewish world lived and changed the way the Bible was. In fact, the Bible Jesus' day, yes, they had the Hebrew scriptures, but probably what they quoted more than anything else was a Greek translation called the Septuagint. Did the Roman Empire affect God's people? Absolutely, tremendously so. We see that as we go through the Gospels. So the nations that are focused on in prophecy are the nations that directly affect God's people or his word. That helps, right? Because sometimes you say, man, why didn't we cover the Incas and the Mayas? They're great nations, but they weren't directly affecting God's people or his word at that time. So this just to kind of help us as we walk through it. Let's look at our fourth identifying mark. It says, before whom, that's before the little horn, there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So it's going to uproot 3 horns and its rise to power, 3 kingdoms. We will look at that a little bit more on Wednesday night. And he shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High and think to change times and laws. There's a couple here. Let me focus. Okay. I realize why I put this in. So remember, we started out in Revelation 13, and we saw that it had all these descriptive points. And we said, where have we seen these before? We go back to Daniel 7. Now, I'm just going to go back to what I was just reading in Daniel 7. It says, he shall speak great words against the Most High. Some of you have a New King James Version, which I use. It says pompous words, right? Against the Most High. Daniel describes it this, Revelation describes it this way. There was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. So these great things, as I connect these two together, are connected with blasphemy in some ways. So I want to take a little bit of time just to look at the subject of what does blasphemy look like? What are these great words against the Most High? How does the Bible define blasphemy? It actually does. Simply put, I like it when it's so simple. Sometimes I have to scratch my head and say, I have no idea. But in this one, it's pretty clear. Let's take a look at it. John chapter 10, verse 33. This is Jesus. He is walking in the temple 3 months before his crucifixion, right? So this is December, January, somewhere, right? He is there. It's a special feast time, celebration. And he says this, I and my Father are one. You got to read the whole context. It's a fantastic story. And it says, then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Jesus answered them, many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of these works do you stone me? Then the Jews answered him, saying, for a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy. And then he says this, and because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. You are claiming to be God, and that's blasphemous. We're going to stone you. By the way, can Jesus claim to be God? According to the Bible, he can be, right? That's what we see according to Scripture. And so was he committing blasphemy? No, but they thought so, right? There is another descriptor. And this is earlier on in Jesus' ministry. The first one we looked at in John 10 is towards the end. This is towards the beginning of his ministry. He is in a house and he's healing people, and actually he's not healing, he's preaching to people. And there's so many people that come in, they can't get in. So there are people pushing from the outside, maybe looking in the windows. I'm just using a little bit of imagination on that one, but they can't get in. And some people decide that they want to bring a friend who's paralyzed to Jesus. And the only way they can do it is to break up the roof, because you can do that in that culture, and drop him right down in front of Jesus. And then Jesus, it says this, when he saw their faith, speaking of the people who dropped that man down in. By the way, friends, God honors the faith of you when you are trying to share Jesus with someone else. That's what a beautiful thought. You and I can actively take an active role in helping other people see Jesus. And that's not where we're going here. When Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. But there were certain of the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, why doth this man thus speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only? Oh, in their mind, blasphemy was claiming the power to forgive sin. So before, in John chapter 10, claiming to be God was a way to commit blasphemy. And this one, claiming the power to forgive sins. Simply put, the Bible defines blasphemy as assuming any rights or power that belongs to God alone. And that would be a kind of a summary description there. All right. I am clicking. There we go. Daniel 7:25 says this. And he, speaking again of this little horn power, because the whole focus is in the little horn power. He shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Now this is, some of my slides here you notice are King James Version. You have mercy on me, okay? Wear out is kind of like, how many of you have worn out a pair of jeans? It's not a good thing. Well, it feels good, but it's not really good for the genes, right? So wearing out means he's persecuting and wearing out the saints. In fact, it says this in verse 21, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. So that is the next identifying mark. He wars against the saints. And then this one. And he shall, this is the same verse. There's so much in it. Let's notice just the last phrase. And think to change times and laws. Now, I find this fascinating. Do laws change? Yes, all the time. All the time. How many of you remember when the national speed limit was 55 miles an hour? Just go down Cape Mid Highway. I don't think anyone obeys that speed limit, at least that I have found. If you do, thank you. But, wow, now it's like 85. I was in Montana back when it was whatever's safe and reasonable. And safe and reasonable is how fast you move your car. And I think they changed it back to 75. But it is amazing. Human laws change. What this is talking about, friends, is not human laws, because everyone knows they change. This is talking about God's laws. Thinking to change God's times and laws. And that would be point number 7. And then our last one, Daniel 7, verse 25. And they shall be given into his hand. So they, this is, can we look at this verse in entirety? Because for some reason I'm forgetting the context. Let's look at Daniel chapter 7. And verse 25. Daniel 7 and verse 25. Again, I encourage you, if you have time, and your next 2 days off without a seminar, right, to check out this chapter. It is fantastic. Daniel 7, verse 25. And he shall speak pompous words against the Most High, and shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall attend to change times and law. And then it says, then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. So the saints given into his hand, it's a persecuting power. They're going to be treated poorly, badly, by this power. God's people are going to be treated badly by this power for a time and times. King James said half a time, dividing of a time. What does that mean? All right, I'm glad we have a little bit of time. I've gone fast, so that could take about 5 minutes here. If you don't like math, you can tune me out. That's perfectly fine. But we're going to do a little bit of math. We're going to show a few portions of Scripture that make things crystal clear, because the Bible can do that, and I like it when it does. What does this mean? A time, times, and a half a time. Someone has done their studying. Let's look at it. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 14. And so in Revelation 12, uses this same phrase, time, times, and a half a time. I like to look at the context because in Revelation 12, it talks about the same thing twice. One time it uses the phrase time, times, and a half a time, and another time it uses something different. And that something different is going to help us understand time, times, and a half a time. So with that, let's look at it. And to the woman, a woman was a symbol of what? We looked at it last night. A church, right? Oftentimes in the Bible, Jesus described his people as a woman. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished or fed for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. So here you have a woman, she's trying to get away from the serpent. So she's given 2 wings of an eagle, and she flies. Don't you love the symbology? Sometimes I remember when I first looked at Revelation, I said, no one can understand this book. It is impossible. I remember the first time I took a class in Revelation, it went in and out the other ear. So if any of you are ever feeling like, ooh, have mercy. It's okay. I know I've been there. Anyhow, here is this woman. She flies, 2 wings of eagle. She flies into the wilderness, and she's fed there for a time, times, and a half a time. Now, with that same phrase, notice what it says a few verses earlier, chapter 12, verse 6. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,203 days. Oh! And now I'm starting to get it. A time times and a half a time equals 1,203 days. Three score is, a score is 20, right? So if you read this in the New King James Version, it might just say 1,260 days. Don't you love the slightly newer version sometimes? It helps you out. All right. 3.5 times equals 1,260. All right, for the math, if I want to find out what 1 equals, I have to divide 1,260 by 3.5, and I got it. 1 time equals 360 days, which in biblical years, that's 1 biblical year. They were in a lunar cycle. You and I are in a solar one, so there was difference every now and then. They threw in a 13th month to fix things up, if you're familiar with the Hebrew calendar and how things were done, right? Oh, this morning, for those of you this morning, we talked about Nebuchadnezzar, remember? And he was acting like a beast for how many times? 7 times. So when you look at this, you're like, oh, okay, this could be 7 years, right? And when you start tying the Bible is greatly interconnected. And when we start studying these many things together, it ties things together. 1 year equals 1 time. So with that being said, with that foundation, we're going to add one more element. In Bible prophecy, oftentimes, especially in apocalyptic prophecy, a day equals a year. I've appointed thee each day for a year. This is Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6. And then 1,260 days then would be 1,260 years. Now, when I started putting this together with what I will be sharing next Friday, called the greatest prophecy, I came to the unequivocal proof, in my opinion. I challenge you to come and hear it out. That Jesus used the same exact understanding that a day equals a year. He says it unequivocally when you hear him speaking. He understands prophecy to mean a day equals a year. Now, there are some prophecies where that doesn't happen, but oftentimes it is. And you have to look at the context. Remember, I think we discussed this in an earlier meeting. Context is king. But in prophecy, oftentimes it does, and this really is helpful. All right, so here are the 8 marks of identification. Rules for a time, times, and half a time is the last one. Please note 5, 6, and 7. I just want to take a little point out here. Number 5, number 6, and number 7, that is Antichrist language. This is some power that's, let me use this word. Anti means against or in place of, right? The word anti. This is against Christ or in place of Christ's language. Speaking great words or blasphemy against the Most High. Persecuting God's people. Thinking to change God's times and laws. Speaking against God, trying to change what God does, fighting against God's people. How's that? A little bit more modern way of looking at it. So this is what we see when we're looking at this passage. So when we look at these 8 marks of identification, we see that 3 of them. If I looked at the first 4, in fact, I think I have a slide with all of them. Oh, I'll come to that slide. We have Babylon, followed by Medo-Persia, followed by Greece, and followed by Rome. And then we have the 10 kingdoms, which, by the way, 3 of them were uprooted, so we can't say really 10. It should be 7. But you understand what I'm saying. It started out as 10, right? And then there is a little horn of power. And we see that. We've discussed it. On Wednesday night, and maybe you can do your research between now and then and say, okay, based upon what we've seen and what we've added up, what fits? What would fit that descriptor? Here's the 8 marks of identification again, all in one slide. Among them, a nation that rises up among the kingdoms of Europe. That could be any of them. After 476 AD. Well, that narrows it down a little bit. Romania fits. I'm not picking on Romania, But it's not. It's a little horn. It uproots 3 nations in its rise to power. Those could be any good nation. Are you with me? But now I get to 5, 6, and 7. Now, this is not a good nation anymore. Speaks against the Most High, great words against the Most High. We saw its connection with blasphemy. We saw that it wars against the saints and thinks to change times and laws. Now we're seeing something that's fighting against God. And then the last one, rules for a time, times, and a half a time. 1,260 days. Day equals a year, 1,260 years. It doesn't say that it exists for that long. It says it rules for that long. The saints were given to its hand for that amount of time. It may exist longer on either side. But for that amount of time, the saints are given into his hand. So fascinating picture. I hope that you are thinking. So what do? Run scared. No. My friends, remember what we read earlier. We don't have to worry, according to 1 John, right? The Antichrist may come, but greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. My friends, there is no power more powerful than love. Why do I bring that out? Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And the first description in 1 John, just want to emphasize that, 1 John said that. 1 John 4 verse 8 says God is love. When you have God in your life, you have love in your life. When you have love in your life, there is no fear, because as 1 John says, perfect love casts out fear. My friends, if we look at the context of 1 John, it's beautiful. I love it. It's one of my favorite books. So, is it really that powerful? I like to close with a story. There were, as you know, there's been a lot of mission work that's taken place on the continent of Africa. A lot of mission work. I have had the privilege of being in Tanzania and South Africa, and I can tell you God is doing incredible things there. In this story, 2 missionaries were out, an older one and a younger one, and they were going through rebel-infested territory, which is unfortunately common sometimes. And they were held up. The older one was asked, "What are you doing?" And he started giving this strong tirade. "I'm doing this," defending himself, what he was doing, and before he got too far, the rebels just simply gunned him down. Terrible. The young man saw what happened, and he did something very interesting. He said, "You know what? I got a nice coat on, and it'd be a shame for you to get messed up when you shoot me. Here. All right. Go ahead." And they looked at him and they said, "No, we're letting you go." How can they fight against that kind of love? My friends, I don't know all that the future holds. None of us do. But I do know this. When we come up against the power that is against God and his people, we don't win by fighting fire with fire. God's people win by having love for those who hate them. It's the Christian way, isn't it? It's probably the most predominant picture of what Christianity is. I have no question, and I look at this, there's a power that has exercised its power and hurt God's people. But I can say that my response should not be to say, let's get even. My friends, anytime that happens, we just have more wars more anger, and a whole lot less of God. My challenge for you, because the Antichrist is kind of a picture of something that we may be facing in the future, will be facing in the future. But the reality is what you face today may be something different. You don't have an Antichrist hanging out at work. Some of you may think so, right? You don't have that at your home. You don't have that in other places. But what you do have is sometimes people who know how to really get underneath you. There's no power greater than the power of love. No power greater than that. And so as we face the future and tomorrow, may we remember this story. Love can change people's hearts. And most importantly, it can change ours. Amen? Could you bow your heads with me for prayer? We have taken time tonight to look at a foundational principle, a prophecy, Father. Thank you. Thank you for loving us enough to inspire Daniel, to share it, write it down so we can understand. And Father, also thank you for inspiring John, that we can live lives of love in spite of an Antichrist power. Give us the courage to live that kind of life. Please bless each one of us here, Father, as we leave and are gone for a few days. And please bring us back safely by your grace on Tuesday. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, just a reminder.